My family thought it would be funny to abandon me with my 3-year-old in a foreign country without any travel documents. Your child is on everybody's nerves, my brother said. It's your own fault, my mom added. I didn't cry. I did this. The next time they saw us, their jaws dropped. Paris, 2001. I was 19, carrying my 2-year-old Julia on my hip. I already felt like I'd aged 100 years. The streets were hot, crowded, full of tourists snapping photos with cameras that still needed film. And I was trudging along, sweating through my shirt with sticky little hands, grabbing at me, and a chorus of complaints following right behind. Not from my daughter. No, from my family. She's crying again. Can't you keep her quiet? You're slowing us down. That was the soundtrack of our family holiday. My brothers walking a few paces ahead, like they were allergic to being near me. My parents sighing every time my daughter whimpered. And me in the middle, carrying the weight of an actual child, and the invisible weight of being the family nuisance. I should have known better. I should have known that taking a toddler to Europe with my family was never going to end well. But I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be decent human beings about it. Spoiler alert, they weren't. We were in Paris, supposedly the city of love. But in our family, it was the city of irritation, sarcasm, and thinly disguised disgust. Every time my daughter so much as sneezed, someone had something to say. Don't let her touch me. She's sticky. She's ruining the tour. Why did you even come? And the best part, whenever I asked for help, just 5 minutes to rest my arms, to let someone else hold her while I bought water or adjusted my bag, I got gems like, "What? So she can puke on me?" No thanks. Not my kid. Not my problem. Anyway, you get the picture. I was exhausted. My arms ached. My patience was shredded. And every glance from my parents carried that silent, sharp message. You did this to yourself. And then, of course, came the setup. We were near Notre Dame when my daughter had her inevitable meltdown. Screaming, kickings, full toddler opera. My parents groaned, my brothers complained, and I finally snapped. You know what? I'll take her. I'll calm her down. You all go ahead. I'll meet you at the station. Too eager. Too quick. They agreed. Fine. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. My brother pulled out the train tickets, old school paper slips. He squinted at them like he was decoding ancient scrolls. Yep, 2 walk, he said, handing them back to Dad. My other brothers smirked. Mom nodded. Looking back, I should have noticed the little smiles, the way they all seemed to share some private joke. But in the moment, I was just grateful to get a break. So off I went. My daughter and I found a quiet bench. I bought her ice cream. For 10 blessed minutes, I got to pretend this was an actual holiday instead of a marathon in humiliation. But of course, the peace didn't last. When we got to the station, the platform was empty. My watch said 2. I was on time, but the train gone. My stomach sank. I paced, holding my daughter tighter, scanning for my family. Nothing. Then I pulled out my phone. Remember, this was 2001. No smartphones, just a chunky little brick with a tiny screen. I called. Laughter answered me. My brother's laughter. Then my mom's voice. Oh, honey, you wanted to be independent, didn't you? Well, here's your chance. I froze. What do you mean? Where are you? We're already on the train, she said. almost bored. You said too, I was here on time. More laughter in the background, my brothers yelling, "Enjoy the bus." It hit me like a slap. They'd lied. They'd given me the wrong time. They'd planned this. And the worst part, they knew. They knew my daughter got sick on buses. I'd said it a dozen times on this trip. I'd begged to avoid buses. Hell, I got sick on buses. It was like a family curse. And that's exactly why they did it. I can still hear their voices mocking, entertained by my panic, like this was all one big game. I stood there clutching my daughter, listening to my family laugh at me through a crackly Nokia speaker. And for a second, I thought maybe I'd throw the phone onto the tracks. Instead, I whispered, "You have my passport." "You'll figure it out," Mom said. "Don't be so dramatic. People take buses every day." And then she hung up. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg, but my daughter tugged my sleeve, sticky hands pulling me back to earth. Her eyes were already glassy. That look she got before a long car ride ended in vomit. I pictured it. Hours on a crowded bus, her screaming, puking, strangers glaring at me. Arriving at the airport, covered in shame, only to face my family's smug laughter. Number I looked at the bus team at. My phone buzzed again. "Better hurry. The bus won't wait." I didn't answer. I held my daughter tighter. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then the thought came clear and sharp. I don't have to go. I don't have to chase them. I don't have to beg for space in their world. I don't have to spend one more second proving myself to people who would leave me stranded just for a laugh. So I didn't. I stood in that station, Paris buzzing outside, the bus engine rumbling nearby, and I said it to myself out loud so I'd believe it. No, not this time. And that's where everything changed. If you want to understand why I didn't get on that bus, you need to know the backstory. Because the thing with families is they don't usually turn into monsters overnight. Mine had been training for it my whole life. I was born in the 80s, the great middle child experiment. 2 brothers, one older, one younger, with me stuck in between like the unwanted, filling in a sandwich nobody ordered. They had each other, their little two-man club. I had, well, mostly silence and blame. Always blame. If something broke, it was her. If one of the boys cried, she started it. If there was drama in the house, somehow I was the cause. Middle child syndrome is supposed to be a joke. In my family, it was a career. I'd like to say I got used to it, but you don't really get used to being invisible until it suits someone to pin a disaster on you. You just learn to expect it. And when you grow up like that, you start to believe you deserve less. Less attention, less affection, less everything. Let me explain. It wasn't some scandalous fling with an older guy or a tragic story with some predator. No, it was stupid. Ordinary teenage love. He was in my class, my first crush, my first kiss, my first everything. He was in my class, my first crush, my first kiss, my first everything. I thought it was the real deal because when you're 16, what else do you have to compare it to? He said all the right things. The things no one else ever said to me. That I was pretty, that I was special, that I wasn't just the difficult one. I believed him. Of course I did. We slept together once, twice, and just like in the movies, the moment it was real, he was gone. He broke up with me before I even knew I was pregnant. You're too intense. I just want to have fun. That was his line. I still remember it because I wanted to throw a chair at him. Then came the 2 pink lines, and that's when the real nightmare began. At first, I kept it secret. I wore baggy clothes. I avoided my mom's eyes. But secrets have a way of growing along with your stomach. When they found out, it was like I detonated a bomb in the living room. My mom's face went pale. My dad just sat there, shaking his head like I'd ruined his personal reputation single-handedly. My brothers laughed. Wow, you're even dumber than we thought. The words were like knives over and over. Stupid, reckless, embarrassing. My mom hissed at me. Do you realize what you've done? You've ruined your life. And my dad? You're not even out of high school. Do you think you can be a mother? And me? I just sat there, holding my belly, terrified, but already sure of one thing. I wanted my baby. The boy, my so-called great love, didn't exactly vanish into thin air. He was still around at first in the same school, but the moment things got serious, he started dodging me. Different lunch table, different friends, pretending not to hear when I called his name in the hallway. And then not long after, his parents transferred him to another school for better opportunities. That's when he really disappeared from my daily life. When I told him I was pregnant, he went pale, then laughed nervously. No way, he said. That can't be mine. He didn't say it out loud, but the look in his eyes said everything. He was basically calling me a liar, accusing me of sleeping around. The truth, he was my first, my only, but he didn't care. Denying it was easier than owning up. So there I was, pregnant, underage, living in a house that looked at me like I was a cautionary tale. The gossip spread fast because of course it did in school. I was the girl with the mistake. At home, I was the girl who ruined the family image. Everywhere I went, I was a walking warning sign. I cried a lot back then, but every time I pressed my hand to my stomach and felt her move, I knew she wasn't the mistake. She was the only thing that made sense. I gave birth at 17. And if you've never been a teenage mom, let me tell you, the world treats you like garbage. Nurses sigh at you. Teachers give up on you. Strangers look at you with that pitying, condescending stare, like you're some kind of freak show. At home, it was worse. Every cry from the baby was my fault. Every bill was my fault. Every ruined night's sleep in that house was apparently my fault. My mom snapped at me constantly. We all have to suffer because of your choices. My brothers refused to be in the same room if the baby was fussing. My dad just ignored me like I'd stopped existing. But I loved her. God, I loved her. She had this tiny nose and these bright eyes, and she'd gripped my fingers so tight. I thought she'd never let go. When she smiled at me, even for a second, it was like the whole world tilted back into balance. She wasn't the burden. She was the reason I kept going. But the family never saw her that way. To them, she was just proof that I'd ruined everything. The years between 17 and 19 blur together in my memory. Diapers, feedings, exhaustion, and a constant chorus of insults. By 19, I was technically of age, legal adult, big girl now. But in that house, I still felt like the kid in the middle, ignored until there was something to blame. So when we boarded that plane to Paris with my daughter in my lap, I thought maybe things would be different. Maybe a family trip could soften the edges, show them she wasn't a burden, that I wasn't a disaster. Instead, it was just the same old pattern, replayed against prettier scenery. And then, standing in that Paris station, holding my daughter, while my family laughed at me over the phone, it all clicked into place. This wasn't new. They had always done this. I'd always been the scapegoat, the punching bag, the entertainment. The baby on my hip wasn't the reason. They were. For the first time, I looked at my daughter and thought, she deserves better than this circus. And so do I. I remembered my dad's old passport, the one with Republic Francis stamped on it. He'd been born in France. His parents moved him to the States when he was young, but he never lost the passport. And when I was born, that meant me too. French by birthright, even if I'd never used it. The idea lit up in my brain like fire. I don't have to go back. Not to their insults, not to their cruelty, not to being the invisible, impossible middle child. I could stay. I could claim what was mine. I could build something new for me and my daughter. And that's when I made the decision that changed everything. I wasn't going back. Not now, not ever. The call started when boarding began, and they realized I wasn't there. At first, I thought it might be guilt. You know, that tiny flickering hope that maybe they'd realize what they'd done and call to apologize. Spoiler. It wasn't that. It was confusion. Where are you? Did you miss the bus? Why aren't you at the airport yet? Don't tell me you're lost already. God, you're hopeless. Call after call. My cheap little Nokia lit up like a Christmas tree. My brothers' names, my mom, my dad, over and over, and I ignored them because I wanted them to sweat. But then I picked up just once. Where are you? My mom's voice, sharp, accusing. The plane's boarding. I didn't even hesitate. I'm not coming. Silence. You could have cut it with a knife. What do you mean you're not coming? Her voice cracked with disbelief. You're not serious. My dad barked from the background. You're bluffing, one of my brothers chimed in. I smiled, even though my hands were shaking. Nope, not bluffing. And I hung up. That's when the calls really went wild. It wasn't just them anymore. It was my aunt, my uncle, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, the family phone tree lit up the second I dropped my little bombshell. Think about your daughter. Don't throw your life away. You're being dramatic. I put my phone on silent and dropped it in my bag. I was dramatic, sure, but at least this time, it was my drama. Now you're probably wondering, where did I sleep that first night? Great question. Short answer, badly. I had maybe a couple hundred in my wallet, enough for a few nights in a cheap hostel if I was careful. So that's where we went. Me, my daughter, and one squeaky bunk bed in a room full of strangers. She thought it was funny at first, climbing on the mattress like it was an adventure. I pretended to laugh with her, even while my stomach twisted itself into knots, because I knew the money wouldn't last. The next morning, I marched into the Mairie. My French was, let's call it, creative. I knew enough to order a croissant, not enough to explain. My family abandoned me. I lost my passport. And oh, by the way, my father was French. The woman behind the desk stared at me like I was trying to buy a spaceship. She waved her hands, pointed at forms, rattled off words I didn't understand. I wanted to cry. Instead, I smiled. That tight, fake smile you use when you're about to break down in public. Eventually, she brought over a colleague who spoke some English. Between my bad French and her bad English, we managed to piece it together. Yes, my father was French. Yes, that meant I could claim nationality. Yes, I needed to fill out about 17 forms and triplicate. But no, it wouldn't happen quickly. Weeks, maybe months. That's what they said. And until then, I was basically no one. No proper ID, no papers, just me and my toddler in a city that wasn't waiting for us. I went back to the hostel and stared at the ceiling while my daughter slept beside me. I tried to imagine what it would feel like to give up, to drag us onto the next plane home and beg my family for forgiveness. And then I remembered the sound of their laughter through the phone. No, not happening. Those first weeks were the hardest of my life. Food was cheap bread, apples, cartons of milk. Sometimes I skipped meals so she wouldn't have to. I found a church charity that handed out hot dinners twice a week, and I swallowed my pride and went. I kept telling myself, she won't remember this. She'll remember me holding her hand, not me standing in line for soup. Days were long. I walked the city just to keep us moving, keep her distracted. Parks became our living room. Libraries became our babysitter. Paris is gorgeous when you're a tourist. Less so when you're broke, exhausted, and scared. I tried not to let her see me panic. At night, when she was finally asleep, I'd curl up beside her and shake quietly. Then came the breakthrough. After what felt like forever, the paperwork started moving. Proof of my father's birth certificate, copies, signatures, endless stamps. But finally, they recognized me. French citizen. Just like that. It didn't solve everything, but it was like someone handed me oxygen, because now I could apply for help. Allocations, familialis, money every month, just for being a parent. Apply to get us out of the hostel and into a shoebox apartment with a leaking sink. But still, it was ours. Healthcare, childcare, all those safety nets I'd only ever heard about. For the first time in years, I felt like the ground under my feet was solid. And my family still calling, still furious. What are you doing? You can't just stay there. You'll regret this. Come home. We'll forgive you. Forgive me. The irony almost made me choke. I stopped answering. Eventually, they stopped calling. With a little stability, life started to shift. I put my daughter in subsidized childcare. Cheap, structured, safe. She loved it. Every morning, she'd run inside without looking back. And I'd stand there amazed because she had no idea how close we'd come to losing everything. Meanwhile, I found work. Not glamorous, not easy. Cleaning offices, scrubbing floors, hauling garbage bags. I smelled like bleach half the time. And my knees ached constantly. But the first paycheck I held in my hands felt like gold. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Learning French became my obsession. I watched cartoons with Julia, repeated phrases to myself until they stopped sounding foreign. I forced myself to talk to neighbors, to cashiers, to anyone who would tolerate my butchered grammar. Day by day, I got better. And as the words came, so did something else. Confidence. I started to believe I could really do this. That I wasn't just surviving, I was building. And somewhere in that first year, when the calls from home finally died off, I realized something incredible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the middle child scapegoat. I wasn't the stupid girl with the mistake. I wasn't the nuisance holding everyone back. I was just me. A mother, yes, struggling, yes, but moving forward, step by step without them. And deep down, I knew I'd never go back, not even if they begged. Life didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale. The apartment was the size of a shoebox. The sink leaked constantly, and our furniture looked like it had escaped from a dumpster fire. But it was quiet. I started over. I found work, learned the language properly, and somewhere along the way, I met someone who treated me like a human being. We got married. For the first time, I had a partner who didn't see me as a burden. Together, we built something resembling a family. And while I was crawling out of the mess, Julia was racing ahead into a world I could barely understand. Julia grew up fast. And here's where I need you to pay attention, because what I'm about to tell you still doesn't sound real to me. Even now, you think you know where the story is going. But trust me, you don't. There's still a big twist waiting. Julia wasn't like other kids. She didn't care about dolls or glitter pens. She cared about machines. She wanted to know how things worked. And once she figured it out, she wanted to make them better. At first, I thought it was just a harmless obsession. And here's the part that still sounds insane. One of those little projects of hers exploded. Overnight, she went from tinkering in her room to having thousands of people using her app. Then investors, then offices, employees. I blinked and my daughter, my Julia, was running an actual company. And then came the deal, the big one, the kind that doesn't just change your year, it changes your life. She sold part of the company, and suddenly she wasn't just comfortable. She was rich. Like really rich. I know I can hear myself saying this, and it still sounds like I'm making it up, but no. Julia, the same kid I carried through Paris on my hip, went from sharing stale baguette with me to being a multi-millionaire before she even turned 22. And you better believe I cried the day she told me. Mama, don't worry about bills anymore. And then came the night of the ceremony. Big auditorium, spotlights everywhere, cameras flashing, Julia on stage, awkward smile, clutching another award, like she wasn't even sure how she'd ended up there. I sat front row, clapping until my hands burned, trying not to smudge my mascara. And then I saw them. My parents, my brothers. 19 years of silence. And suddenly, there they were, grinning, clapping, looking like royalty at someone else's party. My stomach dropped so fast, I thought I might pass out, because if they'd come all the way here, it wasn't for me. They waited until the ceremony ended. Then they came forward, arms wide, voices dipped in honey. We've always loved you. We're so proud of you. Family is family, no matter what. I almost laughed in their faces, or maybe screamed, or both. But they didn't even stop at me. They went straight to Julia. Darling, we're your grandparents' sweetheart. We've cared about you all along. We want to be part of your life now. The audacity. They hadn't lifted a finger for nearly 2 decades, hadn't sent a single card or letter. And now they wanted to claim Julia. Not me, Julia. She looked confused, wide-eyed. She didn't recognize them. Why would she? There were no photos of them in our house, no smiling frames on the mantelpiece. But she knew their names. She'd heard the stories straight from me. And now the honesty had faces. She turned to me, eyes searching mine. Part of me wanted to grab her hand and drag her out to scream, "Don't fall for it. They'll eat you alive." But another part of me knew I had to let her choose. So when she whispered, "I want to see them. They're still my grandparents," I felt my chest crack, but I nodded. Those days Julia spent with them nearly tore me apart. I didn't sleep. I paced our apartment, waiting for the phone call, the one where she'd say she was moving in with them, or worse, handing them everything she'd worked for. I heard their laughter in my head, the same laughter that had followed me out of a Paris train station 19 years earlier. I imagined Julia hearing it now, and it killed me. I was convinced I'd lost her. Then she came back, calm, collected, like she'd just gone grocery shopping. "I don't want to see them again," Julia said. I blinked. "Why?" She shrugged like it was nothing. They were fake. I could feel it. They smiled too much. They said all the right things, but none of it was real. They didn't care about me. They cared about the money. That's all. I just stared at her. Julia, my daughter, my brilliant, stubborn, beautiful girl. The one I carried through Paris with nothing but willpower. The one I thought I had to protect from everything. She'd seen through them in days. It had taken me 19 years. The family who abandoned me thought I'd come back crying. Instead, I built a life they could never touch. A life with Julia, too strong, too smart to fall for the same poison. They wanted us crawling. We stood up, and we never looked back. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing by staying in Paris and cutting my family off? Or was it reckless, and I just got lucky? Maybe I was